Well, we pick up on that. This is the ANC, of course, cites a number of achievements in this particular administration. Revenue collection at 89%, 12 tons of garbage claimed in the inner city or cleaned, 550 kilometers of road resurfaced, 3,495 electricity connections, 18,958 work opportunities offered, amongst a list of other things that they say would have been achieved in this administration. As a resident in the city of Johannesburg, what do you make of the term in office of Kabelo Gwamanda? 072-110-5584. Drop us an X at Newsroom 405. The mayor is joining us in the studio. Good to have you. Good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
A far different look to the one that we are seeing when you are being sworn in. But I suppose when you have 3 days left in office, you can hang your three-piece suit and be a little bit more relaxed. Let's talk about the pressure that has been building up, if you like, of discontent amongst Joburg residents and civil society organizations. How have you handled that?
So for me, it was confusing, because how do you then measure the incompetence of an executive mayor? That's the first question that I had. Because in none of the submissions that they've made has there been any issue of substance fundamental enough to call for an impeachment of any politician that would have held office. So much so that some of the issues that they raised, like in relation to electricity.
Yeah.
We have an entity that has an executive. And on top of the executive, there is a non-executive board of directors that would ordinarily approve the business plans of entities. Then it is further taken through a process where it is evaluated in a department of group governance for all the business plans in the city of Johannesburg before it goes to a mayoral committee, before it goes to council. Which sphere would have then be accused of being incompetent?
Are you saying all these issues, for example, as you put it, they've raised decline in city services, electricity cuts, frequent water outages, collapse in infrastructure. You are saying them shifting this blame to you does not make sense to you because there are layers of other structures that they would have laid blame at?
Look, the subject here is not about an individual. It's about an institution and how it functions. We need to have an appreciation first before we can be able to have a position on any matter whatsoever. Yeah. So in the city of Johannesburg, ultimately, politically, I'm the one that takes responsibility for the decisions that are made. Yeah. It is up to me to make a determination as to whether it is the right decision for the future of the city, or if it's the wrong decision based on the negative implication that it might have in the immediate. Yeah. So if I take a strategic decision for the long-term revitalization of the city, of course it's going to pose a discomfort, but it's a futuristic approach towards what we are trying or what we seek to achieve in the future. None of the issues that they are raising can be resolved overnight. And in fact, in one of my submissions, I actually extended my gratitude for the level of confidence that these civil societies have shown. No mayor has been expected to turn an entire city around with over 20 years of service delivery disruptions in a space of less than 2 years. It is impossible to be done. As you would know, from inception of this administration, it has been a difficult challenge, especially with the attacks that have been spewed, assumptions. Yeah. This mayor,
you were attacked from day one.
This mayor is this mayor.
But your past business dealings, and that has taken a huge chunk
amongst
of
many other issues, right? But because I understood the purpose on which I was elected, I was able to stabilize the city of Johannesburg politically.
Yeah, that's an interesting view. Maybe let's talk about the political issues, and then we'll talk about the administration in just a moment. Because part of what the ANC understands your resignation to be, one, is that you always came in with an understanding that you are a compromise candidate because of a political deadlock between the ANC and the EFF. Do you accept that that was the reason why you were appointed?
Okay, let me broaden the issue just a little bit. None of the political parties currently in the city of Johannesburg can be in a position to say we have an outright majority, whether you are a smaller or a bigger minority. But at the end of the day, we are all minorities. Now, in us finding a way to form government, we had our contradictions that needed to be managed in one form or the other. I've been working with all political parties for quite some time. Yeah. That's why to date, no party that forms part of the government of local unity would actually say that that mayor is a failure, because they understand the role that I have played, that I continue to play in whichever capacity that I'm deployed in.
So you were not used?
No.
I mean, it comes across as they're saying, well, you were used to settle a deadlock between the EFF and the ANC, and therefore the call for you to resign you would accept without any reservations. Do you have reservations that they would have asked you to resign at this point?
Look, I've never wanted any form of position in the city of Johannesburg. I understood what it meant to take responsibility from inception. I'll tell you a bit of a joke. When I was negotiating with the ANC members that brought the proposal to my attention and I rejected it, they said, your problem is that you lack ambition and therefore compromising all of us in the process. I had to reconsider my position, understanding that it was not about me, but it was for the greater collective, for us to have a government that would balance our service delivery across the board, which is what I've been advocating for the longest of time. Yeah. So it was not necessarily a compromise or anyone using the other, because even when we decided as a party to go to opposition, we decided out of our own accord to say, even though Herman Mashaba invited me to his house and I sat with him and we discussed, made offers that I was not personally interested in, I still went back and sat in the opposition benches. But when it was time for us as the government of local unity to move forward with government, we were the first to raise our hands for that transition to happen. So the structure of government from the time Popalatsi was removed through a motion of no confidence has been an ongoing process of compromise, give and take, managing our contradictions, but every one of those political parties had to, at some point or the other, make a sacrifice for the greater good. As you would have seen, the biggest party in council, the ANC, had to make that sacrifice to say, if the environment at the moment is not conducive for us to have a mayor, we are willing to choose one of our trusted partners to be able to lead us in a particular direction. Yeah. And when the time comes when we renegotiate, we understand that they will not have any issues with our proposal. Yeah. Because
it's an ambiguous message, though, because in the one vein they say, of course, they were their own statement used to settle a deadlock between the ANC and the EFF. And in the same vein, they're saying, well, your resignation should also be understood as a culmination of a process by the ANC to bring stability, which you said you already brought, to proper leadership, which you claim you already brought. So which one is which? Did you bring stability? Did you bring proper leadership? Because they're saying this is a culmination of a process that is going to now bring the stability and the proper leadership, which means your leadership was not proper. That's my reading. It means your leadership did not bring stability.
No, I think I will reserve that response for them to be the ones that respond with uncertain terms to exactly what it is that they mean when they make those particular utterances. I'm not going to stand and defend myself on something that is evident. It's evident that the city of Johannesburg has been stable. It's evident that the city of Johannesburg has been functional. Yes, we've had historical challenges in terms of water. I'll give you another example. When we elected Councillor Tara Morero to becoming mayor in 2022, you know what they called him? The civil society groups, and they called him the mayor of Jojo tanks, because he was trying to provide solutions to a challenge that we understood exists at the time. And when my other predecessor, Councillor Ahmad, took office, They call him the mayor of potholes. And those are the very same issues that they are claiming to be deteriorating in the city of Johannesburg when they were a priority for us in 2022 already, when the multi-party coalition was in government.
Yeah.
So why now is it of utmost importance to target an individual out of the collective? Because of the fact that they have seen in practice what I was able to achieve. And I think the one part that gets to them the most is the fact that they did not expect my term to last anything longer than 2 months. I think it's another narrative that has been perpetuating in the past for the longest of time. But when all the issues happened in the city of Johannesburg, I mean, no other mayor has faced the kind of pressures that I did and swiftly dealt with them and ensured that the city of Johannesburg remained afloat to date. When you drive out of here, yes, potholes are things that you are used to, but you don't look at the city of Johannesburg as another failed city because everything is operational.
You leave behind the Usindisa matter, you leave behind the gas blast, you leave behind, amongst other issues, this issue of the loan. But let's talk about that when we continue, when we come back from the break. We'll continue with the mayor after this. You can weigh in tonight, 072-110-5584. Drop us a message there or your comments on the tenure of Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Mayor of the city of Johannesburg, if you like. We know that there'll be a 30th extraordinary sitting of the council on the 16th of August at 3:30, and there are really three items there. It's the appointment of the new executive mayor, the speech by the new executive mayor, and that is it. So by Friday, it's said we will have a new mayor. But let's hear what your comments are on WhatsApp tonight. 072-110-5584. Luyanda Gama in Pretoria saying Kabelo Gwamanda was a very good mayor and a very humble individual. It's just that our political landscape wants someone who screams and criticizes other political parties. Gwamanda's way of running was different and straightforward. There's no corruption that they can pin on him. So said. And from Tahla, the Gwamanda is just a sacred lamb by his president who listened to the ANC president to save his parliament seat. Poor soul. Let's pick up from that. I mean, your president says you had a one-on-one with President Ramaphosa. If we saw you at the funeral of the councillor of the EFF, one would have thought you are digging in your heels and you're not going to resign. Did the president convince you to resign?
Look, for me, there's no convincing that is required. My objective, even from inception, was to have a contribution. It's not many of us that can have an opportunity to be councillors. And it's for that reason that I was able to overcome whatever restrictions that may have been in place for me to demonstrate the fact that it was possible. But over and above that, when the request came for me to step down, that was a request that I was willing to accept within a heartbeat because I understood that there's nothing personal about it. It is a request from coalition partners that I work with, that I've always worked with, that we've always had a plan to safeguard the integrity of our service to the city of Johannesburg. And it was generally just a conversation to say we are at a point as the African National Congress where the environment allows for an ANC mayor to be voted in. We need for you to then come to the party and tender a resignation. And they knew this from inception, that it is not just anyone that would be in a position to sit down and understand without any emotional attachment to it, but an understanding that this is how we need to proceed moving forward. So there has been no convincing, there's been no lobbying. We just had one conversation, agreed, and that's how we proceed.
Let's talk then about, what administratively you need to accept in your tenure, right? The MPEC Oversight Report 2024, 3rd of March, if I'm correct, says underperformance of the city and its entities is far-reaching. Repeated material findings by the AG. This is the 2022-2023 financial year. High incurrence of irregular expenditure, absence of consequence management. From 1.2 billion rands in surplus, you had 300 million rands deficit at that point. That's not a rosy picture.
So thank you very much for having raised that. So, you know, MPEG, when we appointed the new chairperson of MPEG, we had to start dealing with cases that date far back as 2008 that have been piling up for the longest of time. I don't know if they conveniently neglected them or they were not fashionable to be processed. That's why the city of Johannesburg had such a huge fruitless and wasteful expenditure rate. Yeah. So as the government of local unity, we understood that we needed to start where the problems started. And we needed to process that because the role of MPEG is to hold the executive to account. Those executives were never held to account. It's just deadlocked in MPEG. And eventually the MPEG report needs to be tabled before council so that the ordinary citizens in the city of Johannesburg can understand and have a clear picture of what may have transpired at any given point in time. It's just that the current chairperson is a hardworking council. He holds us to account. He does not mince his approach. And he ensures that MPEG functions in a manner that it should because of its importance in the city of Johannesburg. So that report, I take pride in the fact that our priority on good governance and transparency has come to fruition through the table of not only this report, but many other reports that we felt were important for the public to know about, as opposed to us concealing them so that we can try and portray ourselves as something that we are not.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I mean, if you look at all your entities, I think it's only the Joburg market and the Joburg theatre that got clean audits. So everything else, qualified audits, if not adverse findings.
I agree. And in the committee that we have established to focus directly on the audit outcomes, is in fact informed by the Auditor General on areas that we need to improve upon. When you are sick as a person and you don't understand what's wrong with you, you appear healthy, but when you run, you collapse immediately. You need to go to the doctor. And what the findings are may not be to your liking, but it will give you a sense of what needs to be done so that you can be restored to a healthy position, which is of utmost importance. I cannot try and portray a rosy picture, understanding that the situation that has been inherited is not a rosy one, and it has to be addressed. It's a bold position to take. It's unpopular. It casts aspersions. It makes you appear as if you are directly responsible for the collapse of those municipalities, but the only thing that you did was to examine where the problems in the city of Johannesburg are so that you can address them.
So did you, at that point, then realize that you've chewed more than, or you've taken a bite of more than you could chew, actually?
If you realize what is wrong with the city and you put measures in place to address them, I don't understand how that comment comes into play. Yeah. Because it's totally unrelated to a process.
Because, for example, let's talk about one of the issues that you needed to deal with is consequence management. Dr. General says is nowhere to be found. None of the officials, none of them, right?
Thank you.
You were going to put together a disciplinary report. It took you a long time. I believe now there is one in place, but it came in quite late in the process just to put a disciplinary report in place.
Thank you very much. So I take pride in the fact that I successfully put it together and tabled the report to council on the establishment of the disciplinary report. And not only that, we have submitted a number of cases that I can't speak about. It has the Democratic Alliance panicking. I don't know why. But it's investigations that have to be processed by the disciplinary report itself. I don't know if it was intentional for the disciplinary report not to be put in place, but it has been neglected. This administration is the one that put it in place. But the problem is that consequence management in relation to the disciplinary report is limited to administrators. Politicians are not investigated, they are not looked into by that particular disciplinary board. The function, it is in the Speaker's office through the ethics committee. But I feel that that is inadequate to curb the kind of corruption or irregular expenditure that you might be alluding to. I mean, if you are a political head and you preside over a department and that department falls on something, it cannot be correct that although the administrators are the authors, that you automatically shift the blame. You are the one with the political mandate from the constituents. They have told you what they want you to implement on their behalf. The administrator is the hand of the politician, and therefore it has to go both ways. When the administrator goes to the disciplinary board, the politician must go to a more stricter forum as opposed to just an integrity commission or an integrity section 79 committee.
We're going to run out of time, so let's quickly take some more of the messages that are coming through. And this, I think, would probably be an issue that they're always going to refer to as your problem, even in the future when you are now an MMC or whatever other position you will occupy in that executive. This is a question from Overking in Midrand saying, how can the mayor justify the flat rate, the surcharge of electricity?
Thank you very much. So I tried to paint a picture earlier on, so I'll expand on it. The surcharge comes from an entity. The entity is called City Power. City Power structures a business plan, and in its business plan, it has a charge that is contributing to what they call financial projections, the assumptions of what will sustain or what will assist to recover the debt, as well as the infrastructure backlog that City Power is currently facing. Now, that is compiled into a business plan, which is then approved by an executive, COO, CEO, CFO. Followed by that is the non-executive board of directors who approve the report with the particular fee. And I'm saying this happens across the city of Johannesburg. It is then taken to the MMC in the Department of Infrastructure, EISD. It is then from there taken to a committee. That committee it's a budget steering committee. I preside over it as the executive mayor. Alongside myself is the MMC of Finance. We review the business plan and we look at the financial implications and we look at the viability of the business plan. And if it makes sense, then we send it to Group Finance. Group Finance then compiles all the business plans and we arrive at an 83 billion budget that is funded. Now, for us to have a budget that is funded, we need to trace the source of the funding. That's only the first step. So when we have that and we've agreed upon it, we agree upon it understanding the discomforts that will be associated with some of the rates that we'll be charging, with some of the NERSA approvals that will be charged, but we are cognizant of the fact that it is going to cause a discomfort in our communities. But critical to note in that is the fact that the 200 rand surcharge is already a charge that is being that residents are paying for in the city of Johannesburg. Postpaid, my apologies, residents are already paying for it. ESCOM supplied residents are already paying for it. The only residents that have been excluded are prepaid. And the reason why is because by the time the city of Johannesburg needed to implement it, COVID hit. And there's no way that they could have introduced it at the time, or based on the fact that people were on lockdown. Now, in 2023, it is then reactivated. It goes through that process. And upon the completion of the 83 budget, I then go on a public participation process, which is an IDP process across all 7 regions. But over and above that, there are targeted stakeholder engagements. And these stakeholder engagements categorized as civil society groups that you'd have to engage as a legislative requirement.
Yeah.
Then you have the institution of higher learning, the academics that you have to consult with as a requirement, constitutional requirement.
Was it meaningful consultation, or did you? Because it seems you went and said, well, 230 rand surcharge. As you explained, it's part of the budget. It went through the processes. We have to put it in. You've been paying it anyway. Those who are on postpaid, so prepaid, we needed to implement it, and that was it. And it seems civil society then said, but we are not listened to say we don't want this thing.
This is just me putting it in layman terms, right? It not having been implemented in 2016, it had negative impact on the infrastructure of the city of Johannesburg that we are experiencing today, that the very same civil society is complaining about, which is the state of our infrastructure. Had that been introduced and had we not confronted COVID, the city of Johannesburg would have had the budget that it needed for it to address the aging infrastructure, maybe not all of it, but the problem would not be as severe and dire as it is now. Right. But whether we like it or not, it is a position that needs to be taken for the city of Johannesburg. I mean, we are confronted with additions in costs for a wide variety of reasons. If I felt that this was not the right decision for the city of Johannesburg to take, I would have vetoed that decision and said no. But I can assure you that a few years from now, bigger challenges than the ones that I had to grapple with would be faced by my successor at the time.
The next time.
So it's not an issue of me saying civil society or the residents must accept. It's an admission on my part that the city may not have consulted in the manner in which it should have to provide more clarity on the purpose and why it is important for us to incorporate that in our budget. And
quick one as we wrap up. We're completely out of time. Were you promised an MMC position?
So the proposal, when it came in a form of the mayor having to resign and the speaker of council having to resign and them occupying positions of MMCs. Of course, I was never responsible for my negotiations. I didn't negotiate with anyone. I was co-opted, and the decision was taken on my behalf, and they said, you are going to lead the city of Johannesburg. So I trust processes that are in place, both in the party, both with the coalition, and the consultative process that our partners undertake for them to come to a determination. Okay. Yes, there has been that commitment to say if the speaker resigns, the speaker will be the MMC, as well as when the mayor resigns, the mayor will be an MMC. It's just the manner in which the reconfiguration was presented.
Mayor, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for having spent this evening with us. That is the Mayor of the City of Johannesburg for the next 3 days, it seems. And of course, appreciate you and your comments.